All right, everybody, I promised to do a stippling demo and a hair demo, and I rushed off of Zoom without doing that, but I also think spending too many hours on Zoom can make you miserable, so I don't feel too terrible about stopping. But what I'm going to do, using this very basic drawing I just started, talk a little bit about the stippling technique. So as I mentioned, stippling is a great way to both show dimensionality, to show depth, and also to put in a bit of value. And the closer that it's basically just using little dots. This is kind of the same technique that the painter George Seurat used. Putting dots next to each other and using dots of different colors that he wanted to blend to create color. But we're doing this in black and white, and it's a pretty popular way of showing depth with ink, especially if you're just using felt tip pens, microns, what have you, or even if you're using dip pen ink. Let me see if I can get this closer without knocking over my tripod. Okay, good. So, and basically, as you can probably, oh, there we go. Yay. All right, I'm just gonna hold this and draw at the same time. That's gonna be fun, right? All right, so basically the principle is where there is more shadow, you're going to have your dots closer together. And of course, you can also use a bigger nib that I'm using. This is a 0.3, which is not as small as, say, a 0.005, but it's still giving me a nice small dot, so that when I kind of start getting to areas that are lighter, my dots won't, it'll read more like a passage of tonal value than it will like, oh wow, she drew a bunch of dots on that lady's face. Why would she do that? So I'm just doing around the eyelids here so you can kind of get an idea, because the eyelid is a nice rounded structure, and the position she's sitting in is kind of interesting and creating an interesting shadow on her eyelid. This was in the days before women wore ridiculous amounts of false eyelashes, so her eyelashes are pretty small. And I'm just being real, kind of looking at my reference and going back and forth as usual to pick out the areas that I need. Her lid here is kind of a medium sort of value, and I want to make it distinct from the whites of her eyes, so I'm just very gently putting in kind of some shading here. And for things like the eyes, which, you know, are going to be more solid, I may just actually, her iris is more solid, I may just define that with lines. Let's see. And she's also got a light highlight right there. I'd actually prefer to do this in graphite or with liquid ink, but this will have to do for this moment. And, you know, say over here, her cheekbone, it takes time. That's the one thing about this method. It takes a very long time to do, but it can be very, it's very meditative, and it can be really satisfying when you're done to see how you can use stippling to define form. I had a friend who really loved stippling, and she would get very upset if her dots came out square rather than round. But I think you get the idea. I don't think it really matters when you're working with dots that small or that close to one another. And right now, that looks really harsh. That looks kind of like she used a lot of blush in that area. So I would just kind of keep working on it and take it down. Whoops. To again, keeping it dark where it needs to be dark and kind of lightening up where we want to have a mid-tone. And hopefully you can kind of see, I can come up along the side of the nose here, and you can see how that's going to provide a lot of definition to her nose. This, once again, is the actress Isabella Johnny, who, she doesn't know it, but she's been my muse in recent months. And the woman is around my age, and she just doesn't age. It's just, I'm trying to figure out what her secret is. Hopefully this at least gives you some idea. And then coming down to lips. So lips can also be done using a stipple method, although lips being the way they are, I may be more inclined to maybe use lines for the values in the lips. I don't know, I may change my mind and try to go back and make it look stipply, but hopefully you get the idea. And underneath the chin is where a stronger shadow is going to be. I usually do that before I do the bottom lip, just so that I have some basis to kind of go on with how light or dark I want the lower lip to be. Remember, the upper lip is often darker than the lower lip. And just by providing some shade there, even though it's not finished by any stretch of the imagination, you've already got some kind of definition there. So now, let's see, I'll keep my thing from falling over. My wants to fall so badly. So now what I'm going to do for the hair, now I'm going to hopefully not destroy this, but I'm going to actually use a slightly thicker line. This is not just slightly thicker, it's really thick. It's a big giant Sharpie. Let me see if I've got a smaller Sharpie that will be better suited for my uses. And I think I might. No, what's that? That's not what I want. Do as I say, not as I do. Have everything organized before you begin. All right, well, I'm going to do, her hair is very black, and in the front, it's very, like, say, this lock that's coming down here, it's much wispier than the rest of her hair, so I might use a lighter pen to kind of convey that. And what I'm really doing is just drawing a couple of directional lines. The trick with hair is that you don't draw the length of every single strand. You want to kind of hint at what's there. So there's places where it gets a little bit thinner. So I'm just kind of leaving some areas to be a little bit lighter and some areas to be a little bit darker. And I don't want to do her entire head this way. So if you have a brush pen, this works really well with a brush pen. Like I said, all I have in my hand at the moment is a giant Sharpie, so I'm just going to go with my giant Sharpie. Again, trying to not dump my tripod while I do this. Sorry about the bouncing. Yeah, I need one of those. If you are sensitive to strobe lights, be careful with this recording. So again, this is very dark compared to everything else. I would really prefer to use a lighter one, but again, you're really capturing the direction that the hair is going in, and it's also going behind her neck here. Kind of need to figure that all out. You really kind of want to figure that all out. So I've got a line here, but her hair is really kind of draped. So I'm going to draw directional lines, kind of showing that. To kind of capture that. Anyway, that's a start in any case, and the other side of the head is a little bit easier because there's just not as much on that side. Also, Sharpies of this size smell a lot and can make you kind of lightheaded. But again, I'm going with just putting some directional marks there. And let's get down to the bottom, leaving areas where maybe the light is hitting it. And I might go in with a thinner Sharpie later to capture some of those thinner directional lines, and to areas where, you want to have a better blend between where it's wispy and where it's not. Yeah, arguably I should have used a thinner Sharpie for this. So anyway, hopefully this is somewhat helpful to you. And I will try to find some more tips for drawing hair, because there's all different kinds of hair, and not every technique is going to fit every single person. So this is just a rudimentary beginning. I hope it was helpful.